Everyone. My name is Maria Cardielos, and I'm the Executive Director of the IGES Institute. We welcome you all here today to what is the IGES Institute Courts Advisory Committee Virtual Summit Series, and today's session is on digital evidence. For those of you that are either new to IGES or a little bit unfamiliar with IGES, our IGES history of now 20 years is built on a network collaboration that marries both public sector and private sector constituents, academia, researchers, and many, many others to join forces and meet the operational challenges of the public sector. Of course, our roots are in justice, and that's one of the reasons that this Courts Advisory Committee has had many decades and many years of accomplishing so many things. But as many of you may have come to know, we have expanded our breadth and our reach of our community far beyond justice into officer wellness, into school education, into health data sharing, and so many others. One of the principles of the IGES organization is that with our standing committees, of which we have 6, we marry those skill sets and those subject matter experts from the public and the private sectors in order to address the priorities that they come up with. Such is the case with the Courts Advisory Committee. By the extraordinary leadership of a gentleman by the name of Joe Wheeler, that I'm sure many of you not only know but respect. He is vice president at Mission Critical Partners. He is chair of our Courts Advisory Committee, and most recently, he is now vice chair of our board of directors. We couldn't be happier with all that he's done all of the years, and we couldn't be more ecstatic at what are going to be the discussions that he will have incited for today's conversation. Though the pandemic brought us to the necessity of needing to have these virtual events as opposed to having them in person, the reality is the impact has been a very positive one. It's done a lot of things. From an organizational perspective, we've instituted many more of these series and put out and produced many of these events that have a little bit of a greater reach because individuals don't have to travel to us and they can engage with us remotely. And from a community perspective, we've been able to reach farther and wider than we may have been able to do if we were to put on so many different in-person events. With that in mind, this specific event, based upon the priorities from the committee, from the practitioners, from the community, was brought together, and they've sought the need in order to understand the solution sets to digital evidence by no less than 4 providers. Working with us today, we have 4 different IGES members. They include Axon, Thomson Reuters, ImageSoft, and Omnigo. We thank them for their participation. We thank them for their support over the years. And I have to give special thanks to Axon and Thomson Reuters because they stood up and contributed to the sponsorship of this event. We know that in these troubling times, it's even more problematic to extend or share the limited resources that we have available to us. And that can be within our organizations, within our communities, within our provider groups. To that end, every little bit counts. And once again, their contribution of not only their support of our mission, but of the committee, of the constituency, and now with sponsorship is extraordinarily appreciated. As with our other virtual events, we have what is a 2-part series, an AM and a PM. In this case, we have what are 2 of our 4 providers that are going to be speaking with us this morning. They include ImageSoft and Axon, and in each of their cases, they're going to give a disposition and a chat with regard to the law enforcement perspective and the court's perspective. That marriage of conversation is what happens between our advisory committees that I made reference to before. What will be mentioned today during our conversations is actually some work that our Law Enforcement Imaging Task Force under our Law Enforcement Advisory Committee is actually working on as well. So that's the cross-pollination that not only we do on our committee levels, but that we do in our constituency. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the virtual mic to a gentleman by the name of Shay Cleary. He works with Mission Critical Partners. He will be emceeing the event, and he will go so far as to introduce our participants for the first panel, to coordinate the discussions, and to engage you as a participant to this event. The success or failure of these events is based upon your engagement, based upon your questions, based upon your suggestions for the future. So I urge each of you either to contribute at the appropriate moment and/or write your questions on the virtual chat board so that we can get your input into the process and so that we can, in fact, improve these events over time and, most importantly, collectively meet the operational challenges that we seek to do so too. So thank you very much and hope you enjoy the event.
We are, next up is ImageSoft. And before I introduce Scott and Terry, I see we've had a number of people join since the start of this. And just a few reminders to minimize distractions, please stay muted and off video unless you're presenting. Again, we will have time for questions. Right after ImageSoft's presentation, we'll have specific questions for them, and then if there's time and additional questions, we can bring back everyone. But please just paste those into the chat, and you can either send them to me separately at Shay Cleary in the chat, or you can comment to all. And then again, if on the right-hand corner, if you have it set to speaker view, you'll be able to see more than if you have it sent to gallery view. So with that, I'd like to introduce our presenters from ImageSoft. First, we have Scott Beatty, who is the CEO and product visionary. Scott's an industry expert with over 35 years experience in computer science and IT. He's been with ImageSoft since 2000 and holds the title of CEO, overseeing all departments with special involvement within sales and marketing. Scott is driven by helping people and always strives to think outside the box to create innovative technology solutions for those both in the public and private sectors. He manages all internal activity and is a hands-on leader with knowledge and expertise to share with others. Some of Scott's most notable achievements are raising a family and creating a company that, through the work of over 160 dedicated staff members, has helped many courts provide greater access to justice. Scott attended Western Michigan University and graduated with a bachelor's in computer science. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Shay.
And then,
can you hear me okay?
We can hear you.
Great.
And also from ImageSoft is Terry Chattery. Terry is a seasoned professional with over 15 years of experience in IT. He has been with ImageSoft since 2009 and is currently working on the business development team as a senior sales engineer. Terry is driven by his eagerness to learn new technologies and always strives to develop and deliver secure, unique, and efficient workflow and process solutions for courts, government, insurance, finance, and other prominent industries. Some of Terry's most notable achievements include 10+ years as a Kofax Capture certified consultant, certification as an on-base installer, and a certification in Codec Capture Prop and Kofax transformation modules. Terry attended Oakland University and graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Management Information Systems. So welcome, Terry.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott and Terry. And again, any questions you have during their presentation, please put in the chat.
Thank you, Shay. And can you see my screen okay?
We can.
Perfect. Thank you. I'll keep my remarks brief. And Shay, I didn't know you were going to read that whole bio. I had to shorten it up a little bit, but thank you. So yeah, I'm joined by my friend Terry here. So Terry's going to we're actually going to demonstrate some of the software that we're talking about today. So I'm just going to kind of set the stage for about 5 minutes, and then Terry's going to really do the important work. So let me flip ahead. So I got one slide on who we are. We're a small company based in the Michigan Midwest area, but we do courts all over the US and Canada. We've got a lot of experience in this market. We've been at it for 25 years, got a lot of customers. Shay was actually a customer when he was with Minnesota. And you can see that we've got a long track record. So we're a small company, but we've got a lot of capabilities and we've got a lot of technical depth. Terry and I are both technical guys. We're not lawyers. So if there's legal questions that come up, we may defer those to someone else, but we can certainly help with questions of a technical nature. All right, I think this has been covered, so I'm going to kind of whip through this pretty quick and just make a few quick points. Obviously, everybody's aware of the problem that video evidence has created. It has created some very wonderful things for the law enforcement community, but it's also created a huge problem. The diversity, Erica was talking about this, is very important. She also talked about how there's a lot of other types of assets that continue to need to be managed. So we've been in the document management world for a long time. And so managing all of this stuff in one place is really our message. Obviously, discovery, rules of evidence, things like that need to be applied. We're experts in that. And our systems, as Erica mentioned, meet CJIS conformance. We do use NEAM standards wherever we're communicating between justice systems where that's appropriate, particularly e-filing and things where we're talking to case management or talking to law enforcement records management systems. I throw the cyber attack regulatory requirements on here just because my point is this becomes, because of the amount of data we're talking about and the new era we live in where cyber attacks are so much more prevalent, there's an additional burden on justice agencies to manage this data, not only and provide access, but to manage it securely so that it doesn't fall into the wrong hands. And that's really important. And that's part of our message on why we use some of the platforms we're going to talk about today. The good news is we've been doing this sort of thing for a long time. This technology has been available for a long time. It's really just bringing together mature technology into a solution that can solve these problems. And our belief is there are a lot of costs here, but if you take a more enterprise strategy, in other words, trying to put everything in one organized place, you can reduce costs overall for your agency, even including the additional burden of storing this vast amount of data. It was mentioned the cell phone is probably the one that most people don't think of. Law enforcement folks certainly do and prosecutors do, but there's a lot of diversity in evidence that's important to be managed. And I think everybody's aware of this, and everybody's aware that, you know, these closed circuit systems produce video that is very hard to display. It's hard to manage because it's usually a multi-camera compressed system stored into one file. So they're usually proprietary files, and we have some tools, and Terry's going to talk about that for helping break that down and store it accurately. Okay, last slide before we turn it over to Terry. So who are our customers? We're a little bit upstream from Axon, and we work with Axon data. So many of our customers, especially on the law enforcement side, are using evidence.com and the Axon cameras. But we're typically working with the prosecutors, the courts, and the downstream users of this technology. So whether it's managing exhibits for the courtroom or managing the evidence file for a prosecutor, sharing that discoverable information with opposing counsel, all of that is part of our solution. We are cloud-based. Most of our customers are going to the Microsoft Azure cloud. We also support AWS. Those are the two, kind of 1 and 2 in the cloud world, and they both have all the security that's needed. They both invest billions and billions of dollars in their infrastructure. They meet CJIS requirements. They meet FedRAMP requirements, et cetera. So our message is, if you're a larger agency or you have a lot of cases, trying to manage this on your own servers is a very uphill battle, and we would advise against it. We would ask that you consider using the cloud, at least for storing the bulk of this data. Our customer in Minnesota actually keeps confidential records on their on-prem system because they didn't want to put the confidential stuff up in the cloud, and that's okay. So we can do a hybrid, but for the bulk of this data, the cloud is the way to go, in our opinion. We do some transformation. Terry will talk about that. We do redaction of faces of when you're doing discovery. Sometimes that's important, or FOIA requests. And as we'll talk about discovery, and Terry will kind of show that as we're going through. So I am through, and we'll bring this slide back later just so you have our email addresses. Feel free to reach out to either myself or Terry if you have any questions, either if something comes up after, we're always available to help. With that, I will stop sharing. Get back to the. Thank you. take it away, Terry.
Okay, so hopefully you're seeing my screen now. So what I'm going to do is just kind of touch on, there's a few different kind of areas that, are involved with digital evidence. One is, the upload process. How does the content even get submitted to the prosecutor or the court system? So we'll start there. We'll look at it a little bit on the upload side of things, and then we'll talk about how it's managed. How do we review? How do we tag it? How do we play back, organize all of that content? And then from there, we can talk about packaging and sharing that with like a defense, something like that, in a discovery process. As well as some of the other tools like the redaction and some of the other pieces. So what I'm going to do first is just really pop into a browser. And I'm going to go right to the digital upload portal here. So what this is just a web-based portal. Users can register and create an account. It could be someone in the public. It could be a law enforcement. It could be an attorney, whoever needs to submit or upload content. If I click the login button here, this will briefly show you a couple methods that you can create your account, just a traditional email, or you can link it to an existing account. So for example, I already have a Google account. I'm just going to log in using that method, so I don't need to generate a new password or anything. So this is going to show that it's logged in under my my account here. And really, this is a general basic portal. It can be used on a phone. So if I had a cell phone video I wanted to upload, I can go right from the phone and attach it there. Very simple to use. Basic navigation is just going to instruct the user. The profile is where you update your registration details. The documentation is help guide if you wanted to research a little bit more about some of the product features. And the submissions is essentially your history of what was previously submitted. So one of the things you'll see is we can also change into various languages. I've enabled Spanish on mine. So if you are accepting content from the public or other people and English is not their primary language, we can turn this into different languages to make it easier for that individual to get you the content that you need in the language of their preference. So I just want to point that out. So really, I'm just going to walk through new submission here. I would pick the entity I'm going to submit to. So if there was more than one, I could select that. And really, we're going to have this linked to a case. So I'm going to put in some partial case information. If I do a search, it's going to say, hey, this isn't found. So we don't want people randomly uploading content without a link to something. So this could be a case number, incident number, whatever that we need to link it to. So if I complete this now correctly and I do a search, it did find that case now. So there is some validation there. And I'm going to go ahead and select that as my active case. So really now I can drag and drop the files. If I was on a mobile device, I could take a picture with my phone or attach from the camera roll. Or here, I'm just going to browse out and grab a couple files here. I'm going to grab a couple and just bring them in. You'll see that the cloud being the backend storage, these are being uploaded. You'll see these little blue statuses going and these tiles created now for each piece of content. And this allows us to tag it with additional information. So obviously we know who the user is submitting. We know the date, we know the case number, but maybe we want to know the name or some information. Is there a timestamp in a video that we should pay attention to? These are other details which are configurable by the entity, by the court, for example. I can also go in here and tweak these. It just takes the default file name that I used, but I can do that and then select what it is I'm bringing in here into the system. And this one's going to be a video. So each piece of content has its own tile of metadata values that can be applied. And so I can put whatever tag that I want that might be beneficial to whoever's going to be reviewing this. Okay. And then really I submit this, and assuming there's no issues, you get a success and you're done. And I can always go to the history now and view what I've uploaded, and you'll see the status processing and going through. And that just means the processing, because it's going to be encoded for streaming capabilities downstream. So I can view that quickly. Submitted meant this one was a picture. It didn't need any additional processing. And really from the upload user's perspective, there's really nothing else to do. It's a way to just to again upload that content, get it into the entity that needs it. I can view the information that I submitted here and some history. I can also go in and maybe make a correction if I wanted to update or add another note that I did not originally submit. I can also go in and download it, or I can view it right here. So if it's any type of document or content, you'll see it'll play instantly here. your streaming functionality all incorporated, so I can validate this is indeed the video I want before maybe I downloaded or updated anything. And then they also have the ability to request a deletion. So this is really now in the solution for that entity. If it's a court, for example, or a prosecutor, they have it in their possession. We'll see that in a second, but I can request that they delete it. Maybe I incorrectly uploaded a video, or I have a different one that's a little bit longer that I want them to use. I can request that one removed and upload the correct one. So that's a little bit about what the upload portal functionality can do from that user's perspective. So in lieu of time, I'm just going to kind of quickly move through and jump into what the kind of end recipient would see. So this is kind of a little mini dashboard here of some of the different functionality I would do with digital evidence once it's been submitted to me. So you'll see kind of a queuing mechanism here. So 3 items have been uploaded and are queued up for somebody to review. I can search for files, and we'll look at some of these. So really I can just click and open any of these from that list. And this could be all types of content, and we'll see different types of content as we're going through this. It could be video files, which is, a lot of what digital evidence is kind of being needed for. And again, I can play these instantly. I can jump to any part of the video and it will play from that location. I can always go into a full screen mode, adjust my quality and some of my other basic controls here. But you'll see some of the metadata that was used to tag this, as well as the ability to add notes. So you can add any type of notes to content here, which maybe reference a specific part of the video or just something that you want other people maybe to know about. And these are all part of the security model. So I can secure these down to a specific set of users if I needed to. So even though maybe the jury can view this, the jury won't see the note or something like that. So that's just a little bit about that ability. And then if you look at the top here, you have a tasks area, and then I can execute different actions. This might be to index, maybe put more metadata on this, make more information about it. Maybe I need to add a note. Maybe I need to request information from the submitter. Maybe I need to flag this as being accepted or admitted to the case. Maybe I need to share it, redact it, download it. There's a lot of different options, and these are all configurable. Just some examples that I've placed on here. So that's the ability to go in and have them queued up as they're being added, so I can do some intake procedure on it and get them, associated appropriately. You can also search at any time. So let's say I want to find, criminal cases that have been already flagged as exhibits, and do a search that way, and go through and find documents based on that. So I have a hit list of 11 that have come back in that search. And maybe I'm looking for a body cam, so I can go ahead and search and find that body cam video right here, and then double click on it if I wanted to view that and play that back. And I picked this one specifically because it came from an Axon camera, so we can play that back here in the system since Axon was presenting earlier. So that's just a quick search. Another very popular method is this case file mentality of organizing things into an electronic folder structure. So here's different cases in my system. I'm going to search for the Marcus case and find Marcus Weir. And as I start typing, you can see it filters directly to the one that I'm interested in. And now if you look on the left, you see all these different folders or categories, subclassification of content. So not everything fits into one bucket. So I might want them organized differently. And then on the right, you'll see colored tabs as well. And this is just a nice way to visually segregate content into specific different files. So I'm going to go to the purple tab, which is where our digital evidence is being stored as it gets submitted. And this organization is dynamic, meaning the files will get put here automatically once that metadata and it goes through that intake. There is no keying or entering of data or indexing. It has to be done by a user. So I'm just going to slide this out so you can see the different types of files. And digital evidence we've talked about, cameras and video and audio, which is great. And we can store those and stream those back and play those right here in the system. But in addition to that, there's all different kinds. This is one that was mentioned. A Celebrite is a way to extract content off of a cell phone, or even take an entire kind of cloned image of a cell phone to be used for evidentiary purposes. So this is that file, and we can still store that in the system. Now you see it's not viewable in its raw format because it's a special UFDR, this example is, but I can go to my tasks and I can download this and bring it local. And what that means is if I bring it local, then I can go to my download folder where it's at, and then I can open it in its specialized player. There are going to be some use cases where you need a special player. There's going to be certain audio files that have multiple tracks that need to be played in their own player, or in this case, a special Celebrate output file that needs a specialized player to understand it. So really now this is showing me a cell phone. If you haven't seen this, this is just a way to go through an entire contents of a cell phone. So this is the phone's life here, installed apps, text messages, phone call history, browser history, everything that a prosecutor, would need, or law enforcement would need to analyze this. So for instance, if I go to the SMS, I get that SMS tab, and now I can read all of those text messages that were on this phone. So the point being here is that this file can be stored in with other digital evidence and can be uploaded along with a video, along with a PDF document, along with any other type of content. And we want to make sure that that happens because all of the audit trail. So we have a detailed history of everything that's stored in the system, and that had come up. The chain of custody is a common term. We need to know everyone who's touched this, from the moment it's created in our cloud world. We're tracking all the different people and everything that's been done with this from the moment it's viewed, opened, downloaded. All of those different actions are going to be tracked here in the system, as well as the different actions like download and so forth like that are going to be tracked here in the system. So having that detailed audit trail for every type of file in the system is going to be important. Different types of files. Again, you can have your traditional documents. Maybe this was a scanned image. Maybe you have digital photographs, PDF documents. You may even have living documents like Microsoft Word or Excel or other documents like that. Again, all stored in one spot. Even large kind of segments of files. This one is a zip file. So we can store zip files, which if the police have confiscated a laptop or a hard drive and they need to have some of that information as part of the evidence, we can store that entire zipped folder structure with the browsable capability here, where you can go and search through that content to see if it's really what you want before you open it or download it. And the importance is this folder structure is important in the way it's being stored. So I don't want to just store the files. I want to keep that folder structure intact. And if I did need it, I can unzip it, which will bring it local and unzipped in this exact layout so that I can keep it that way. And this is important for a number of reasons. Obviously, when you're looking at things like a browser history or something like that, the relationship of a file to its parent is going to be important, as well as things like here, you see a reader file. This is a reader that's going to allow me to place some of these files in that folder structure. And this is important for obviously finding those specialized players down the road. Maybe 5 years from now at an appeals, we're going to need some of this, well into the future. And if I have to go and search for a player that was created, 8 years ago, it's going to be very difficult. So to be able to store that with the file and keep that for its length is going to be important in keeping that all together. So that's just a little bit about some of the various formats. And then some other things we think about is there are other items, whether they be files in another location, you can reference them here so that you have your list saying, oh, this is referencing a URL. I can click and open it up in that other system. I don't need to physically take it out of theirs and upload it into ours. You could really just link to it. This is also can be used for, as you see here, I'm referencing a physical item. So a physical item could be anything like a weapon, a car, a box of files that were never imaged. These are all physical items that I can reference with a digital record locator so that all of my evidence is in one location. So when I am, let's say I'm an attorney preparing my closing arguments, I know to mention the cell phone, I know to mention the video, the audio, the gun, I know to mention all of these, and I don't have to go to the case management system or to my email or a network share or some other cloud tool to find all the different things that I should be talking about. And that's going to be important for a number of reasons. So even though the weapon itself here isn't digital, the reference to it is. And you can also open up a cross-reference list here, which is the same panel as where my notes would be, but this is dynamically linked to the actual item itself. So the physical item's picture is in here again. So I can, again, build out whatever I need to do and research and all of that together. So a lot of different ways to store different types of things beyond just a video. So the other thing I'll do here is for discovery, if you do need to share this, whether that's attorneys sharing discovery or courts needing to package this for a public record request or even up to an appeals court, you can select all the different files that you'd need and go ahead and share those out. So I'm going to hit the sharing button here. And what that's going to do is just open a form that pre-populates some of the data, and I can share this now with whoever needs to access it. So I'm going to put in my email address. And share this out. And since this is sensitive information, criminal data, I'm going to say this person will have 30 days to access this link that they'll be given. And after that, it will be void. And then I can pick who I'm sending this to. So in a discovery example, I would send it to probably a defense attorney. I can put in some details, and I want to password protect this. And I'm going to use what's called a one-time password, meaning the password is only valid once and a new password will need to be generated every time this link is accessed. And really that's the process. You select the files, you make sure your recipient is specified, you hit OK, and then it will share out all that content that you've selected with that individual. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is jump over to my email here and just show you an example of what that external person now would receive. Simple email telling them what's been sent to them by who, and they would simply click a button to say, yep, I want to go view what you've sent me. Here's where they're going to have to add that password. I'm going to hit send code, which will generate that password and send it to me. And this method just ensures that somebody doesn't hack my email and get that passcode. So let me go, and I should have a new email here. And I'm going to copy this and add it into my, and that will take me now in, and I can view and play that right here within the browser. If I need to, I can go full screen if I need to do that. And there's nothing to learn. This is an external person. They're just getting a link. They're going in, they're viewing the file, or I've given them the ability to download as well, and they can take a copy local from here. So that's really all they have to do. No training or anything needed to send out a link to an external person. So that's a real quick on the discovery or sharing out content. Relatively straightforward on that. One of the other things is if this needed to be redacted, maybe there's some other innocent witnesses in here that need to be have their faces blurred. Maybe there's some voices that are saying names out loud that need to be redacted, or maybe a truck goes by and we want to redact a logo. Whatever that case might be, I can send this to the audio redaction tool. Okay, and sending that to the redaction tool then allows me to queue up multiple files. So if it is a public record request or something, I could add multiple files into my tool here. And as they're added, we also have this head detection and transcription that automatically runs on these files. So when I open up one of these to work on it now, to actually look at the redaction and make sure it's going to be suitable for distribution, I open it up, and you'll see on the side here, anywhere it's found a head is going to automatically classify that and put that here into my panel. And if this gentleman needs to be redacted, I could simply just check the box. You'll see the green redaction box around his face now. And even if you play it, it will follow him as he's moving. It will track him throughout the scenes that he's in here. And if that's all I needed to do, I hit the redact button and I'm done, and I get a redacted copy. But as you can see, there's other boxes where other heads appear. I could say, oh yeah, redact this man everywhere he appears, meaning he's off camera for a while and maybe comes back, and that's a new head detection, and so forth. So that's how that can be done. And you can also, if this vehicle needed to be redacted, I could just draw a box and redact it myself by putting in the box, and then you can track that object as well, meaning, hey, follow that as it moves forward and backwards in the system, and make sure that that is blurred. And then the other thing it does really is the audio layer does get transcribed. So all of the audio is here, and you can jump to any part of the video by just clicking, and you'll see the it kind of goes by here, kind of like karaoke style, where you'll see it light up as it's being spoken. But I can also search. So again, this individual's name is Brian. If I search, it found 2 instances of Brian. I just right click, hey, redact everywhere. And now that name will be beeped out anytime in these both cases in these spots. And again, I just hit redact file and I get my redacted copy that I can distribute, store back in the system, whatever it is that that I really need to do with that particular file. So in lieu of time here, one of the last things I'll just kind of point out is integration capabilities. So we talked about a little bit on the NEAM standard. So that's passing content back and forth, which is supported here. What we can also do is link it. So other people have a case management system, whether that's the record system the police use or the prosecuting attorney or the court system. They all have a case system they're using. So this is just an example of one, but the point is, if our content is in the cloud in this digital evidence solution and I need to get to it, I'm in my case management, sure, I could go log into the cloud and all that, but here we can link it up. So if I just simply double click on the screen, all of my digital evidence just pops open here in this other panel. And with single sign-on and those other capabilities, it can be that seamless to the end user where I can just start now going through all the different documents and evidence that's important to me. Or I can pop directly into the folder layout if that's my preferred method. And again, maybe I go right to my purple tab and I can view all the different content and digital evidence that might be relevant to me here in the system. So hopefully that looks seamless. So even though it's a separate system sometimes for storing this content, all of it is in one location and it can be seamlessly linked to from any type of other system. And this is all done without any custom coding. So I am going to pause here and see if the question panel is lighting up or not.
All right, thanks, Terry. And yeah, you're right on time, right on the money. We did have a couple questions come into the chat. And the first one you just started talking about a little bit in regards to single sign-on. And the question is, what protocols do you use to support single sign-on?
Yeah, so there's a couple. Some people can still do Active Directory or ADFS if you're in a kind of a cloud kind of situation, as we're talking about. But most common, it's SAML communication. And for those who are technical might know that, but SAML is a like an XML, but it's done for security tokens and security information. And that is the most common approach now to do a single sign-on through a cloud-based platform.
Okay, and there's a specific question regarding SAML 2.0 as well.
Yeah, so SAML 2.0 is supported here in the system. So our solution has multiple methods in other ways. So if you did have your own identity provider, we use SAML to pass that information back and forth and authenticate.
All right, thank you. And then we did have some questions regarding integration with CMS and RMS systems, and I believe you've answered that. And then one question we had was regarding the pricing model. Is it, is the pricing model based on the amount of videos that are shared, or is it, what is the general pricing model for this?
It's typically a combination of the amount of storage you're using, because obviously that's a real cost that we have to bear, and it's typically also based on the number of named users. But we've done unique programs, for very large agencies where maybe more of an enterprise approach makes sense.
And the named users he references are kind of your internal, your day-to-day workers. Your external users, your uploaders, people you share with, they're not part of any user count, so those can be unlimited.
Okay, I think that answers that one. And then there's a question regarding, and this, I think this question is really for, everyone on the call. And if anyone on the call has the answer to what you've maybe done in your court or even your organization, but the question is whether or not courts have created new positions to support the evidence management process. So I guess starting with Scott and Terry, are you aware of any courts doing this?
Yes, it's actually fairly common, especially in larger jurisdictions. The police agencies are doing it as well, obviously. You know, they're getting folks trained on how to manage and handle video evidence. That's the first step. But prosecutors need that same training. They need the same tooling because they're going to deal with those files eventually, and their need is obviously a little bit different. And then courts are going to need to be able to play these things and manage them as well. So they probably need less. They're not investigating, so they need less tooling and less training, but they will need expertise. So we do know of courts that have gone that direction, and we can provide names of some references if people are interested.
Okay, thank you. And we just had another question come in. Do agencies need to use this to start the process to integrate with the court? Do you work with any courts who use this independently from their justice partners?
I'm a little confused by the question.
Yeah, Amy, feel free to unmute if you're willing and to ask it. Otherwise, I can give a shot at it.
Yeah.
One of the benefits of our system is it is an independent system, so it's not tied to any specific case management system. And we take input and we deliver output to really almost any type of system. And that's really our expertise, is we put this together so that it all works seamlessly within your organization.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon for somebody to bring this in kind of standalone from their court CMS at first. As you saw me integrate and pop into that folder, that's kind of included, but to pass data back and forth, that sometimes becomes a later phase. So they can kind of get started. Let's get a handle on the evidence here, and then we'll add some additional integrations downstream and more tightly couple these solutions.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, I'd also like to open it up for questions. If anyone's thought of anything else to ask Damon or Erica from Axon as well. Okay, if not, and I'll continue to monitor the chat till I'm done talking. I want to thank everyone for your participation, both the presenters and the attendees. Terry, that was pretty impressive what you showed. I'm gonna probably clean up every file on my cell phone that I don't need now. It looks like we do have one more question from Mr. Wheeler. Once you are engaged, what is the approach you use to get my organization up and efficiently running on your system? So a little bit about the maybe implementation process.
Sure, and we have teams of business analysts that have experience in the justice realm. So, and we have full-time project managers that also have justice experience. So we would bring in a team, and it would start with the discovery process, where we would work with your organization, understand what your goals are. Everybody has a little bit different goals. The product does a lot of different things, and you don't necessarily have to bite off the entire apple at the start. It starts with that process, and that's typically done in a few weeks. The discovery process. Sometimes for a very large, complex implementation, it could take a little bit longer than that, but that's pretty typical. So once we're through that process, we have a clear definition of what the system's going to do for you, and what, if there are any enhancements you need, those can start getting built, and then we'll roll it out. The software is mostly off-the-shelf software, so this isn't something that takes years to implement. This is something that can be implemented in months. But like any good IT project, it has to be done carefully and properly, and we're dealing with very sensitive data here, so we can't cut short, the discussions of security and roles and stuff like that. So we have to do our kind of due diligence from that perspective.
All right, thank you. And the same question for Axon as well, either Damon or Erica. If you're still on.
Right, yep, still on. Sorry, just had to get off, unmute, back on video. So the question was for implementation. What's the timing of that, and what's involved?
Yep. What's if an organization moved down the path of your system, what is the approach you use to to get them up and running?
Yeah, so really, it's just about how many users that they have, and some of the nitty gritty as to the features that they want. Like if third party playback is their is the crux of what they need, we implement that. It's all housed on evidence.com, so it's just the enablement of different modules that individuals would request.
Okay. A follow-up question is, we've heard about the cost structure for ImageSoft regarding the pricing model question. What are the cost similar cost drivers for Axon?
So ours is an unlimited storage solution that those costs are built into the per user cost, of accessing the system. And again, it's just based on whatever modules they decide. We're rolling out some new enhancements here in December. That was on my last slide that y'all never got to see, but yeah, again, it just depends on what features they want access to, but it is priced per user.
All right, thank you. And I am getting an answer to the recording question here that was asked. Someone, it was direct to me. Someone asked about getting the recording, so.
Yeah, and Shay, if I could maybe just clarify a little on the pricing. Almost all this cloud technology is being sold in a subscription fashion instead of a perpetual fashion. It just makes more sense for that type of solution. So you don't have to typically have that large downstroke of CapEx budget to get into a system, I think, like ours or like Axon. They're more of a subscription, so it's easier to get into from that perspective. So you can start with a few users, maybe a part of a department, do a proof of concept very inexpensively.
Okay, thank you. So the recording will be available for all attendees following today's sessions. If there are no further questions for either presenter, then I'd like to invite everyone back at, I guess it's 3 Eastern, 2 Central, 12 on the West Coast, where we'll have OmniGo and Thomson Reuters and their CaseLines product present next. So thank you again to everyone for your time, and have a great afternoon.
Thank you.